My own daughter told the nurse, "Cut me loose." Then she begged in front of the witnesses. I was lying in my hospital bed, weak from the stroke, hooked up to IVs that beeped like annoying alarm clocks. The nurse was checking my chart when Clara stepped in, her face tight, like she'd bitten a lemon. "About his care," the nurse said. "Any instructions?" Clara didn't even glance at me. "Just cut him loose," she said flat out. "He's lived enough." My chest squeezed tight, not from the heart monitor, but from those words slicing deeper than any knife. I'm Max Whitman, 72, retired postal worker from Indiana. My wife passed 10 years back, leaving Clara as my only close kin. I'd trusted her with everything. My health choices, my will, even daily care after this mess hit. But hearing her say that, like I was some old package to toss, it woke something fierce in me. The nurse's eyes went wide, darting between us. Clara just shrugged, like it was no big deal. I pretended to doze, but my mind raced. How long had she felt this way? I decided right then I wasn't going down quietly. This betrayal was my spark. Just before you continue to watch, Joe would like you to subscribe to this channel and like this video. It would encourage him to keep his streak of thrilling revenge stories for you to watch. Alright, back to the story. The young nurse froze like a deer in headlights, her pen hovering over the clipboard. She glanced at me, hooked to machines that hummed like a fridge at night, as if waiting for me to speak up. I locked eyes with her, silently begging, "Don't do it." Clara crossed her arms, smiling cold as ice. "You heard me," she added, like ordering coffee. The nurse swallowed hard. "I'll need a doctor's confirmation for that," she said, her voice shaky but firm. Clara rolled her eyes. "Fine, but make it quick." As the nurse left, I felt a tiny win. That hesitation gave me an opening I would never forget. Clara patted my hand like I was a kid, saying, "It's for the best, Dad." But her touch felt wrong now, like a stranger's. Alone later, I replayed her words, anger bubbling like soda shaken too hard. How could my own daughter want me gone? I'd raised her alone after her mom died, worked extra shifts for her braces in college. This wasn't stress, it was something darker. I grabbed the call button, but stopped. No rushing. I'd play weak a bit longer, gather my strength. The nurse came back, no changes made. Good. Time to plan. I always kept a small notebook by my side, tucked in the drawer next to my bed. It was part diary, part evidence log, filled with scribbles about doctor visits and pill times. But after Clara's cold words to the nurse, it became something sharper. That night, while the hospital lights buzzed like angry bees, I started writing down everything she said and did. Each cruel remark, like, "He's just dragging this out," or her impatient sighs when changing my water. Every sign she wanted me gone, like skipping visits or checking her watch mid-conversation. It felt like sharpening a blade in silence, slow and steady, turning my hurt into something useful. My hand shook at first, weak from the stroke, but the words flowed clear. Day 3, Clara whispered to phone. "Soon it'll be over." I hid the notebook under my pillow when nurses came. Clara thought I was fading, my mind fuzzy like old fog. But I was building a case, quiet as a mouse in a trap. The notebook would later become my most powerful weapon, a simple pad of paper that could cut deeper than her betrayal. One evening, Clara thought I was asleep, my eyes shut tight under the thin blanket. The room was dim, just the glow from the hallway sneaking in. She pulled out her phone and dialed, her voice low like a secret wind. "Yeah, the papers are ready," she whispered. "Things will be smoother once Dad's out of the picture." My heart pounded like a drum in my chest, but I stayed perfectly still, pretending to snore soft and even. She paced a bit, her shoes clicking on the tile. "The will's set, and the insurance. Yeah, it'll cover everything." I pieced it together like puzzle bits falling into place. She wasn't just careless. She was plotting, mapping out my end like a bad map to treasure. Her words hung in the air, sour as old milk. I wanted to sit up and yell, but I held back, breathing steady. She hung up, glanced at me once, then left without a goodbye. She didn't know I'd caught every word, tucked them away in my mind like hidden coins. That call was fuel for my fire, proof stacking up. Revenge brewed slow, but sure. The next morning, a social worker visited with forms supposedly bearing my signature. She held them out like they were gold, saying, "Mr. Whitman, just confirming your wishes." I stared at the papers, my eyes narrowing. "That's not my handwriting," I said firm. pointing at the scrawled name. Clara jumped in quick. Dad's stroke made him forget things. He signed them last week. But my mind was sharp as a tack, and I knew forgery when I saw it, like a bad check in my postal days. The social worker paused, glancing between us. We'll need to verify this, she said, tucking the forms away. Clara's face tightened, but she smiled sweet. Of course, no problem. Inside, I boiled like a pot left on high. She was twisting my words, my life, to suit her plans. I vowed to gather proof before striking back, starting with that notebook under my pillow. Each lie she told added fuel to my fire. The social worker left, promising a follow-up. Clara patted my arm. See, Dad? All sorted. But nothing was sorted. This was war, quiet and building. I remembered Thomas, an old friend from my postal days, now working in hospital records down the hall. His job was filing papers all day, just like old times sorting mail. I called him secretly from the patient phone when Clara stepped out for coffee. Thomas, it's Max, need a favor, I whispered. He chuckled low. Anything for you, buddy. What's up? I told him about the fake forms, Clara's push to cut me loose. Can you check who authorized them? Discreetly. He promised to poke around, no questions asked. Give me a day, he said. Clara came back with her latte, chatting about weather like nothing happened. I nodded along, hiding my plan like a squirrel with nuts. What Thomas uncovered would shake me to my core, but for now, I waited patient as a fisherman with line and water. The clock ticked slow, each second building suspense. Clara checked her phone again, probably plotting more. But I had allies now, threads pulling together. The trap was setting itself. Thomas returned 2 days later, slipping into my room during visitor hours like a shadow in the hallway. He glanced over his shoulder before closing the door soft. Max, you were right, he whispered, pulling a folded paper from his pocket. Clara submitted documents declaring you DNR. Do not resuscitate, without your consent. My hands trembled on the bedsheet, but my rage kept me steady, like an anchor in rough water. She had tried to write my ending, deciding my life like flipping a switch. Timestamp shows she did it yesterday, while you were napping, Thomas added. No doctor's sign-off either. I nodded, tucking the paper under my pillow. Thanks, buddy. This means everything. He squeezed my shoulder and left quick, promising to watch for more. Clara had crossed a line deeper than I thought, playing God with my heartbeat. But now I had proof, solid as a brick wall. That was when I knew revenge wouldn't be silent anymore. No more pretending to be the weak old man. I'd start speaking up, letting others see her true colors. The next time the nurse came to check my vitals, I waited until Clara was in the room, fiddling with her phone. I asked loud enough for the hallway to hear. Did my daughter tell you I'm not worth saving? The nurse looked startled, her clipboard slipping a bit in her hands. Clara hissed at me. Dad, be quiet. You're confusing things. But I saw the doubt creep into the nurse's eyes, like clouds over a sunny day. She scribbled a quick note on her pad, her pen moving fast. I'll check the chart again, she said, voice unsure, glancing at Clara like she was measuring her words. Clara forced a smile. He's just tired from the meds. The nurse nodded but didn't look convinced, stepping out with a hurried step. Every small witness mattered now, like pebbles starting an avalanche. Clara turned to me, eyes narrow. Why'd you say that? I shrugged weak, but inside I grinned. The seed was planted, doubt spreading slow but sure. I needed more people to hear the truth, to see her mask slip. My church friends stopped by one afternoon, bringing homemade soup and cards with prayers scribbled inside. They were good folks, the kind who'd drop everything for a neighbor in need. Clara was there, sitting in the corner, scrolling through her phone like it was more important than air. Old Mrs. Fletcher handed her a bowl. Clara, dear, how's your dad holding up? Clara didn't even look up. I'm not his babysitter, she snapped, sharp as a thorn. The room went quiet, like someone had sucked out the oxygen. Mrs. Fletcher's face hardened, her kind eyes turning steely. Mr. Harlan cleared his throat awkward, shifting in his chair. They stayed a bit longer, chatting with me about old times, but I saw the glances they shot Clara, doubt creeping in like shadows at dusk. When they left, hugging me gentle, I felt a spark. Seeds of suspicion were taking root in their minds, without me saying a word. I realized I had allies I hadn't even asked for yet, people who'd seen her true colors up close. The game was shifting, slow but sure. Hidden in my wallet was the card of my late wife's lawyer, Mr. Hallbrook. a sturdy guy who'd handled her estate smooth as butter years back. I waited until Clara left the room for her quick errand, then fished it out with shaky fingers. Dialing from the bedside phone, I kept my voice low, like whispering secrets in a library. "Mr. Holbrook? It's Max Whitman. Need your help." I spilled everything. Clara's cold words to the nurse, the fake forms, her whispers about papers, and me being out of the picture. He listened quiet. Then his calm reply came like a lifeline in rough seas. "Leave it to me. We'll protect you." My heart eased a notch, knowing he was on it. Clara came back with coffee, none the wiser, chattering about some show on TV. But inside, I grinned secret, like a fox in a henhouse. The legal gears were about to start turning, slow at first, then picking up speed. No more helpless old man. I had a pro in my corner now. Holbrook visited under the guise of an old friend, slipping into my room with a briefcase like it held sandwiches instead of legal bombs. He was my late wife's lawyer, sharp as a tack after years in the game. "Max, let's get this done," he said low, pulling out forms. Clara had stepped out for lunch, thinking I was napping like a baby. We updated my will right there in the hospital bed, my hand steady enough to sign. She thought she was the main heir, set to grab everything when I kicked the bucket. Not anymore. Instead, my estate would go to charity, helping kids like the ones I delivered mail to for decades, with a trust set aside for my grandchildren, safe from her greedy fingers. Holbrook nodded approval. I got wind of it from Thomas, who overheard whispers in the records room. The hospital ethics committee began looking into it quiet, like mice in the walls. No big announcements, just digging deep. Clara had no idea she was now under quiet investigation, her words haunting her like a bad dream she couldn't shake. She breezed in that afternoon with flowers, acting sweet as pie. "How you feeling, Dad?" I mumbled weak, hiding my spark. Inside, I waited patiently for the fallout, like a fisherman with bait in the water, hooks set deep. The report would spread, pulling in doctors, maybe even the state board. Clara checked her phone constant, probably plotting more papers. But the net was closing, thread by thread. I added it to my notebook, another nail in her coffin. When a doctor insisted on confirming decisions directly with me, Clara lost her composure like a balloon popping in a quiet room. He stood by my bed, clipboard in hand, asking about my pain levels and treatment wishes. Clara jumped in. "Why ask him? He's barely here," she shouted, her voice echoing off the white walls. The room fell silent, like someone had hit mute on a noisy TV. Even the doctor looked stunned at her cruelty, his pen freezing mid-note. Nurses in the hall peeked in, eyebrows raised. I let out a weak laugh, cutting through the tension like a dull knife through butter. "I'm right here, Clara," I said soft, but loud enough for everyone. Her face turned red as a tomato, sputtering excuses. I meant his mind, the stroke. But the damage was done. The doctor nodded slow, jotting more notes. "We'll proceed with patient consent only." Clara stormed to the window, fuming. Her mask was slipping fast, cracks showing wide for all to see. I smiled inside, more witnesses to her game. My grandson, Evan, came to see me alone one afternoon, sneaking in like he was avoiding a storm. He was 15, tall for his age, with Clara's eyes but a kinder heart. "Grandpa," he whispered, pulling up a chair close. "Mom's been acting strange." "What's going on?" His voice cracked a bit, worry lines creasing his young face. I reached under my pillow for the notebook, handing it over page by page of entries. Clara's cold words, her snaps, the fake forms. His face turned pale as milk as he read, flipping faster like chasing a bad dream. "She said that?" "To the nurse," he muttered, eyes wide. I nodded slow. "It's all true, kid. She's after more than care." Evan closed the book, hands shaking. "I believe you, Grandpa. I'll stand by you, no matter what." Tears welled up, but he wiped them quick. Fine. Clara didn't care, snapping at me in front of them like I was a pesky fly. "Dad, stop whining about the food," she'd say sharp, rolling her eyes while they watched. One time, she yanked the blanket rough, muttering, "You're such a burden." The boys shifted awkward, exchanging glances like they'd seen a ghost. She thought it didn't matter, that teenagers wouldn't remember or care. But every word was being stored away in their memories, like seeds planted in fresh soil, ready to sprout when needed. Evan whispered to me later, "They saw it, Grandpa. They're on your side." I nodded, adding it to my notebook. More witnesses, more bricks in my wall against her. Soon, there would be no denying the truth. Her cruelty caught in too many eyes to hide. Clara cornered me one night after the lights dimmed, the hospital quiet like a library after hours. She leaned close, her breath hot on my face. "Stop fighting this, Dad," she hissed low. "It's better for everyone if you just let go." Her hand pressed too hard on my chest, just for a second too long, like testing if I'd push back. Fear spiked through me sharp as a needle. But so did clarity. She wasn't just greedy for my stuff. She was dangerous, like a snake coiled in the grass. My heart raced under her palm, but I stayed still, eyes half shut. She pulled away, satisfied I'd caved. "Good," she muttered, turning to leave. But that touch lit a fire in me hotter than before. I had to set the trap now, before she struck harder. My notebook waited under the pillow, ready for this entry. Evan, Holbrook, the nurse, they were pieces in place. Time to pull them together. With Holbrook's guidance, I asked for a family meeting in the hospital conference room, pretending it was about sharing care duties. Clara jumped at it, thinking she'd push more control my way. "Good idea, Dad," she said over the phone, her voice sweet as fake sugar. I nodded along, hiding my grin. Evan helped set it up, inviting church friends and the nurse as support. Holbrook would be there too, like an old pal. The day came, and Clara walked in smug, her heels clicking confident on the tile floor. She froze at the door, seeing the full room. Evan, Mrs. Fletcher, Mr. Harlan, the nurse, Holbrook, even Thomas from records. "What's this?" she snapped, eyes darting like a cornered cat. "Family meeting," I said, calm from my wheelchair, tubes still dangling. She sat down stiff, forcing a smile. "Fine, let's divide responsibilities." But I knew it was about exposing her, not sharing loads. The stage was set, lights on her like a bad play about to flop. I opened my notebook slow, the pages crinkling like dry leaves underfoot. The room went quiet, all eyes on me. I cleared my throat and read Clara's own words back to her, steady as a drumbeat. "Cut him loose," I recited, my voice stronger than it had been in weeks. "He's lived enough." Her eyes widened like saucers, color draining from her face fast as spilled milk. Silence spread across the room, thick and heavy, like fog rolling in. Evan spoke up next. "I overheard similar stuff, Mom. Like on the phone, saying it'd be smoother once Grandpa's gone." Clara's mouth opened, then shut quick, her smug mask cracking like cheap glass. The nurse nodded. "I heard it too, that first night." Mrs. Fletcher gasped soft, hand to her chest. Clara's face turned pale as a ghost, sweat beading on her forehead. "You twisted it," she stammered, but no one bought it. The truth hung there, naked and ugly. Holbrook stepped forward like a knight in a suit, his briefcase clicking open with a snap. "I've already filed a motion to invalidate those false forms," he said calm, pulling out papers that rustled like dry leaves. He explained Clara's forgery attempt clear as day, how she'd faked my signature on the DNR, thinking no one would check. "There's an ongoing investigation now," he added, his voice steady like a judge's gavel. My friends from church nodded along, backing my testimony with quiet amens and firm stares. Mrs. Fletcher spoke up. "We saw how she treated him, cold as ice." Clara sputtered, her face twisting like a wrung-out rag. "You can't prove anything. This is all twisted." But proof was already on the table, stacked high as a deck of cards, waiting to topple her house of lies. Evan squeezed my hand, his grip strong. The air thickened with tension, everyone shifting like they sensed a storm brewing. Clara glanced around, desperate for an escape, but the walls felt closer now. The same nurse who'd been pressured by Clara walked in then, her scrubs crisp, but her steps hesitant, like walking on thin ice. She stood by the table, clipboard in hand, and testified about that first chilling command. She told me, "Cut him loose. He's lived enough," the nurse said, her voice shaking a bit, but not wavering, like a tree in wind. Everyone in the room turned to Clara, eyes sharp as pins. Mrs. Fletcher whispered, "Lord have mercy." Holbrook nodded. "And did she pressure you further?" The nurse swallowed. "Yes," kept pushing to skip the doctor. Clara's web of lies was unraveling fast, threads snapping one by one. She jumped up. I was stressed. "You don't understand." But no one bought it, their faces hard as stone. Evan stared at her like seeing a stranger. The nurse finished, stepping back, her duty done. Suspense hung thick, waiting for the next shoe to drop. Finally, Clara dropped to her knees like a puppet with cut strings, her face crumbling as the room's eyes bore into her. She cried out, "Dad, I didn't mean it. I was just stressed. Please forgive me." Her voice cracked desperate, tears streaming like a broken faucet. Hands clasped like in prayer, she begged, "Don't do this to me." But I sat there calm, the strength of every witness around me like a warm blanket on a cold night. Evan shook his head slow. Mrs. Fletcher whispered prayers. The nurse crossed her arms, unmoved. Clara's pleas bounced off like rain on a roof. Too late, too fake. "I'll change," she sobbed, crawling closer. "We can fix this." Holbrook cleared his throat. "The damage is done, Miss Whitman." Her power play had flipped. Now she groveled like a kid caught stealing cookies. Forgiveness was no longer hers to demand. She'd thrown it away with her cold words. I told her steady, "Daughters protect fathers. They don't bury them early." My words struck deeper than any shout could, hanging in the air like smoke after a fire. The room stayed silent, except for Clara's sobbing, raw and broken. Evan looked away, ashamed. Mrs. Fletcher nodded solemn, like hearing gospel truth. Clara clutched at my bed rail. "Dad, please." But her voice trailed weak, no fight left. Everyone knew the truth now. Her greed, her plots, laid bare like dirty laundry in the sun. The nurse shifted, uncomfortable but firm. Holbrook packed his papers slow, letting the moment sink in. I felt light, like shedding a heavy coat after winter. Clara's tears didn't move me. They'd come too late, after too many lies. But I had one more twist to deliver, waiting like a card up my sleeve. Holbrook announced that the new will had been signed and notarized, his voice cutting through the tension like a knife through soft butter. He held up the papers for all to see. "Clara receives $1, he said plain, "to show she has not been forgotten, only disinherited. The rest went to causes that truly mattered, charities for kids like Evan, hospitals that help folks like me." Clara's tears turned to rage, her face twisting like a storm cloud ready to burst. "You can't do this," she screamed, lunging for the papers. Holbrook stepped back calm. "It's legal, Miss Whitman." Witnessed and sealed. Evan shook his head sad. Mrs. Fletcher murmured prayers. Clara spun to me. "Dad, after everything?" But her everything was lies and plots. The room buzzed with whispers, witnesses nodding like they finally saw the full picture. Her power over me was gone, slipped away like sand through fingers. But her rage boiled hot, eyes promising payback. Weeks later, I was discharged, my steps shaky but stronger than before, like a tree bending back after a hard wind. I walked out of that hospital with Evan by my side, his arm linked in mine steady as a rock. Clara wasn't there to pick me up, no call, no show, like she'd vanished into thin air. She had lost more than money. She'd lost the right to call herself my daughter, her greed burning that bridge to ash. Evan drove me home, chatting about school to fill the quiet. "Grandpa, you're tough as nails," he said with a grin. I chuckled weak, but inside, peace settled like warm sun after rain. The house felt lighter without her shadow lurking. But as days passed, I still wondered if this was the end of her games. Her rage at the meeting echoed in my head, like a dog not done barking. At home, I sat in my favorite chair by the window, the old leather creaking under me like a familiar friend. The notebook rested in my lap, pages filled with every twist of Clara's betrayal. My story had spread like wildfire among family, friends, and even the hospital staff. Whispers in church halls, shocked calls from cousins. "Did you hear what she did?" they'd say, shaking heads. Clara tried to play victim, calling around with tears, claiming I was confused from the stroke. But no one believed her anymore. The witnesses had seen too much, heard her beg on her knees like a thief caught red-handed. Revenge didn't come with shouting or fists. It came with truth, quiet and sharp as a well-aimed arrow. And truth had cut her loose instead, leaving her scrambling for scraps of sympathy that dried up fast. Evan visited often, our bond stronger without her shadow. I smiled, knowing the witnesses would never forget what they saw, her mask shattered, her pleas echoing hollow. Peace settled in like warm sun after a long storm, no more wondering if she'd strike again. Finally, I could breathe easy. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to like this video, comment, and smash the subscribe button. Also check out other videos on the channel. Joe's got more interesting stories for you.